Good afternoon, everyone. This is Christian with PerfectStockAlert.com, a 100% free service for smart investors and traders. All we ask in return, please refer a friend. Today is Friday, December the 28th, 2012. As we do each Friday, we'll be going over all the major markets we track for you at PerfectStockAlert.com, all 19, so that you will know everything that I know moving into the week ahead. We're going to start off looking at Australia's market, the AORD. You can see we had a very nice move to the upside here. And this has continued for this week, and we're still waiting for a pullback here. For the time period that we were back here, we were shorting because we were in an overall downtrend. That changed when we took out this high. Once that happened, then we started to shift into an uptrend. We expected a bit more of a pullback than we got here, and she immediately started running higher. The very next pullback, of course, would be a buying opportunity. I'd look for that to find support somewhere around a 50-period moving average. Wait for that to come around before you get involved there. And that's what I'd be doing with this market. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 158 points today. That was basically people getting out ahead of the weekend. We talked about that. Don't really see much more downside potential here. I really don't think you're going to do a lot here. I think you're going to find support in this range right here. Even though you sold off below it, I think you're just moving sideways right here. I think your signal we talked about on Thursday was here, and I think we didn't get an opportunity to buy this because you didn't take out this high, which we didn't really expect to happen anyway. We told you that yesterday because of the fact that you're going into the weekend, people are going to sell ahead of that and so forth and so on. But when Monday's market opens up again, we'll be looking at what's going on, the fiscal cliff, and so forth and so on. So that will keep us interested, but we won't be a buyer until we either get another one of these signals, the hammer candlestick formation, or we start to take out this high right here. So which is still something I'm keeping an eye on, but it's no longer something I can buy immediately. Okay, so we're just watching this market. This pullback is proper. It's what we expected to happen. You've got this high point here, a higher high here. You've got this low point here, and any pullback here that does not take out this low point will still give us a series of higher highs, higher lows. We're going to buy that scenario because it's an uptrend. One more item to note about U.S. markets. Actually, we are going to be closed on Wednesday of next week for the New Year's holiday. I know that's January the 2nd, and I have no idea why they do that, but on occasion we have it on the 2nd, our holiday. So that's the way it is. I guess people feel like it's okay to get drunk and then come and trade stocks. But anyway, you'll probably see light volume trading early next week anyway. But once the New Year holiday is over, we'll see it picking back up again. Looking now at the French 40 CAC index, we talked about this one several times. Told you just wait for the pullback here. After you had this bounce here, we expected a pullback, didn't happen. She just kept pushing high. We told you do not chase it, wait for a pullback, and this is why. You immediately pull back, erasing all the gains that you had made on those previous couple of weeks. So it shows that that's why you don't chase it. You wait for those pullbacks. This pullback has now begun. I expect it to find support at the 50-period moving average. Will put you about in line with the previous resistance lines. That's going to be where you're going to be looking for support, because resistance, once it's broken out, you close above that, turns into support. So that would make sense there to see a bottom at that range. So keep an eye on that. In case you're new and you're not familiar with what I'm talking about here, when we're looking at a pullback, what we want to do is wait for that pullback to give us a nice hammer candlestick formation. If we can get that on a pullback, then we'd be interested in considering a buy opportunity. But as long as we are just free falling, we just want to wait for that to form a little bit of hammer candlestick, tell us that there's some buy pressure there, and that's why you're going to typically find that right there. Looking now at the Milan index, or the MIB, you can see that we've been stopped out of this one on the long trade that happened here. We got stopped out, then she started to advance again, gave us a little shooting star signal. Confirmation of that signal today as we had more selling, so you could actually take this as a sell opportunity here. Look for a little pullback to about the middle Bollinger Band line. Don't look to get rich here because the overall trend is up. Therefore, when you take this as a short trade, you look for a smaller gain potential there because you're counter trend trading. But there is a trade right there. Bulls should wait for this pullback to finish and give us a nice hammer candlestick formation, and then we'll be looking to go long again. The German DAX composite, same basic overall story, nice move to the upside here, and we have actually not got a really dramatic shooting star signal there, so I'm not going to attempt to sell this one on a pullback. You may actually just pull back very lightly here, finding the previous resistance acting as support, and this could be about this range here. And again, you've got this support coming up with a 50-period moving average, so I don't see a lot of downside potential here. But for those of you who are looking to go long, which I would be in this scenario, wait for the pullback to give you a hammer candlestick formation, and then look for your shot. Gold as well as silver is in a clearly defined downtrend. We have lower series of highs, lower series of lows, and this one's no different. I really just see this as a little bearish flag forming right here. I don't see this as any kind of a buy opportunity here. You'll notice that we really didn't move to the upside after 4 consecutive days to the upside. We just kind of bounced around in here, a little tight range here. But you will notice we did get up there at the 60 line on the ultimate oscillator, where in a downtrend, a strong downtrend, you can find resistance points there, your actual peak points there. So that would make sense that we're hitting off that now and going lower. I would leave this alone on the bearish side. On the bullish side, I would not attempt to buy this, call it bottom. I'm not going to at the same time take a short position, because a lot of what's going to happen with gold is going to be dependent on what happens with the fiscal cliff, and so I don't want to play that kind of a game. So I'm just going to leave this one alone for a while. The Hong Kong Hang Seng Index continues to elude us. There's nothing I can do with this particular chart. I'd say right now, with the higher highs and higher lows, give me a pullback close to the 50-period moving average or below it, and I will be interested. Right now, I don't have that, so I just can't touch it. The India Bombay Stock Exchange, or the BSE, is just basically moving sideways. We can do a couple different things here. We may break down and continue to get a nice little pullback, then bounce off that, but that's a long shot, I think. I think instead, what you're going to probably just see is this kind of moving activity here until eventually we tighten up, and then we break to the upside again, which means you may miss any opportunity to go long in that scenario unless you use a couple different options. You can either be a buyer based on this candlestick here with a stop set off of this low here, or you can say this is the high, and I'm going to draw myself a little trend line right there and say when she breaks out above that, I can buy again at that point. For me, I'll just leave it alone for now. The EWJ, or the Japan iShares, you can see we've been stopped out of this little trade we had here at this point in time. We've just, for the past week, kind of been moving sideways here. I don't really see anything I want to do with this. If we get a nice little dip here with a hammer candlestick formation, be watching the previous resistance lines. That's going to be acting as support. Don't be looking for a pullback to the 50-period moving average down here, because you won't get there. So when you pull back to about the middle Bollinger Band line, probably be where your best entry opportunity is. If you got a hammer candlestick signal and confirmation, then I would take that. Quick glance at the FTSE London Financial Times Index. This is a tricky little chart. You could actually straddle it with options if you wanted to. This little move you have to the upside here, looking for a pullback to give us a nice quality long opportunity. We had a little pullback here. Nice hammer candlestick formation. Notice this is the previous little resistance line now acting as support. That's what we're bouncing off of there. So that's what we're looking at here. You can look at it from different perspectives. Another way to look at it is to say no, that we're peaking and we're calling the end of the uptrend at this exact point in time. I think it's a little bit more risky to do that. But in this particular point in time, you do have this shooting star signal confirmed by the following one here. So if you're looking for this to actually be a downtrend trade, I could see why you're doing that. It would make sense. Your stop would be set off the high, but don't look for a lot to the downside, because the overall trend, high point here, higher high here, low point here, and you pull back here, it doesn't take out this low. This is just an uptrend. It's a great buy opportunity. The NASDAQ closed down again today, and you'll take note that you've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 consecutive days set of downside in the NASDAQ, as well as the Dow Jones Industrial Average. This sell-off that's going on right here is also calling for a reversal here, in my opinion. Now, this is something that can be debated all day long. It won't really matter because it's going to be based on the news, but reality, in my opinion, we're just going to be moving sideways until we get more news on what's going on with the fiscal front there. Right here is where you've got some major support, and again, we're talking about the 50-period moving average being the best buy opportunities at or below that line in an uptrend, and that's what you have, an uptrend. High point here, higher high here, low point here, higher low, anywhere we go other than if we take out this low, but would take some serious doing to pull that off, so I don't see that happening. I think instead, you've got this hammer calling, telling you there's support there. You should be looking for a buy opportunity. We did mark the chart, but we didn't expect to get a signal on the inside to enter that position, and we didn't. But we did get another signal here calling for a reversal back to the upside. Remember, when it happens at the top, when you see the rally to the high point and then you get a shooting star, that's one thing. It's a sell signal. When you pull back and then you get the same kind of a candlestick formation, it's another thing. It's a reverse signal to the upside. It's basically an inverse hammer. So it's important that you keep track of the difference and pay attention to what they're telling you. And this one's calling, again, for a bounce to the upside. Looking now at the XOI oil index, this is one we told you to keep an eye on. We're still watching it here. We have had a signal here, a hammer candlestick formation, that touched the 50-period moving average. That's about as risky as I'm willing to get with those, and I'll explain this better later when you see another chart. But right now, the fact that we just continue to move lower here is fine. It's actually a good thing. Gives us a better entry opportunity the next time around. Of course, we didn't take this trade simply because we didn't take out the high point. You have to have confirmation after a signal, and we don't have confirmation at this point. We had a signal, but no confirmation. So watch for another signal, and then look for confirmation to get involved. I'll let you know when that happens. Most important thing on this chart, overall trend. High point here, pulls back to a low point, bounces off a strong hammer candlestick formation, takes out the previous high. It cannot do that unless you have buy pressure stronger than sell pressure all of a sudden. So that's important to keep in mind. When you get a pullback here, now you're thinking that you're going to go down here. I don't think so. You've already determined that buy pressure is stronger than sell pressure at this point in time. So now we have a pullback here that's just going to give us a buy opportunity when we get a nice signal. Looking now at the US Dollar Index Bullish Fund, the UUP, you can see that in this particular chart, whenever you're looking at the dollar or a derivative of the dollar, you want to think of it in relation to stocks, because when people sell stocks, they in effect buy a dollar, so that would drive up the price of the dollar. And when you have people buying stocks, you have people in effect selling the dollar in exchange for stocks. So you're going to see a inverse relationship there. So in this particular case, we have a downtrend while the market's been rallying. Now we're seeing the market pull back, but we don't see the dollar actually doing a great deal of movement to the upside. We're actually just kind of making a little move here, little shooting star. Notice we're overbought here, bouncing around and starting to roll over here. Nothing strong here in the dollar. So the argument that we're fixing to make a massive peak to the downside is really not being confirmed here by the dollar. I think instead you've just got a little bit of chicken money jumping out ahead of the fiscal cliff, when in reality we do this over and over with governments. They always come out and say, there's nothing we can do. Oh, guess what? We had to do something, so we did. The Russell 2000 Small Cap Index, this is a chart that will be interesting to some of you. You'll notice that you had this downtrend. It ended when we took out that high point. I'm sorry, this high point with that high point. And then we got this little pullback. Now, I've said many times before, whenever you're in an uptrend, which you would be at this point in time, because you have this high point, higher high here, low point here, any pullback would give you a higher low. It would be a series of higher highs, higher lows. You'd be a buyer there. But whenever you're in that scenario, you want to look for your best buy opportunities at or below the 50-period moving average. We had a hammer candlestick here. It's too high above the 50-period moving average to get me interested. However, I can see why someone would be looking at that and saying, I'm going to try to buy this one. Well, you didn't get a confirmation anyway. You have to take out the high of the day there in order to get confirmation. It didn't happen today, but just keep an eye on it. Well, if you get another signal, maybe a hammer candlestick formation at this level or something that would be closer to the 50-period moving average, maybe. But right now, just keep an eye. Don't chase stocks. Not in this market. The S&P 500 Large Cap Index, the main thing about this chart, it's a lot like the Dow Jones or the NASDAQ, but the main thing I want you to notice here is note the amount of activity. You've got this high point here, we pull down here, good volatility to the downside, then good volatility to the upside, and then we decrease that volatility right here. We're really not getting all that dramatic, and we're actually just basically moving sideways like I've been talking about once we got down to this 50-period moving average. I don't see a lot more selling here, but we do have an uptrend. We have this high point here, higher high here, low point here, and then we'll get a low point somewhere at this current level, I suspect, and then we'll start to reverse back to the upside. The main thing here is I want you to note this distance here. Keep that in mind when you see the VIX chart. Quick glance here at silver, basic same overall story as gold. We have a very little downtrend here going on, and we have a little bearish flag formation here. I don't really see this as anything more than a continuation to the downside in the near future. So keep an eye on it, but I wouldn't be a buyer here. Looking now at the TSX, or the Toronto Stock Exchange, just moving sideways all week, not really doing much of anything. And this is something I expect to continue. The 50-period moving average is right here. We're not getting a massive sell-off going on. And as long as we continue to maintain this range here, I'm just going to keep buying. This is my stop right here. And that's the only issue that I have with this, is that our stop limit is very close to our 50-period moving average, and therefore we may get stopped out just to turn around and reverse higher anyway. In that case, if we are stopped out, just wait for a better opportunity. Maybe we'll get some dramatic selling that I don't see happening at this point in time, and then give us a better buying opportunity. But right now, I'm just going to stay invested and keep a tight stop on it. Looking now at the VIX, the volatility index, this one runs the inverse of the S&P 500. So when you see the VIX in a bullish move, you should be seeing the S&P in a bearish move, and vice versa. The main thing here that I wanted to talk to you about today is the size of this particular move here. Notice this distance comparative to the S&P 500. They don't balance out there. You've got more movement in the VIX than you have in the S&P 500, and that tells me that you've got more fear going on the VIX side of the activity than you have on the S&P. You're really not seeing a lot of people selling the S&P, but you are seeing the VIX really rally to the upside. Look for this for a short opportunity. If you get a nice shooting star signal up there at the 70 line or close to it, you'll notice it typically peaks out before that point. So keep an eye on this as a sell opportunity. This is not something I want to be looking to go long. Even though the trend is currently up, this is typically has to do with the actual news on the fiscal cliff. It has nothing to do with the fundamentals, so to speak. So keep an eye on it. And again, I want to point out again and again and again, I'm not concerned with the fiscal cliff because I know it'll be solved or kick the can down the road, whatever. And then we turn around and we're going to be looking dead smack at the fourth quarter earnings, which are notoriously the best earnings of the year. So this is not an environment where I want to call a market top ahead of that bit of news. The EMW, the Wilshire 4500, again, this is something I want to be buying next week given the right opportunity. And that's got everything to do with the fact that the trend is up. A high point, this you got low point, and anything higher than this one is going to give you a higher low. This means an uptrend, and you want to buy the uptrend. You're also getting the signals, hammer candlestick formation. Today, we did not get a confirmation of that. I'm still watching this level, and I'm going to keep an eye and see if we get another hammer candlestick formation or something to get confirmation on, or something of that nature, or even a pullback to the 50-period moving average, which is something I would prefer. But again, this is something I want to keep an eye on. This is your previous resistance line here, here, and here. This is called a zone, if you will. And we'll just pull it off the line and see you're right there. And so there's nothing, actually, no real sell pressure at this point. I think, in fact, you're going to consolidate upon previous resistance, which is going to act as support, therefore moving sideways until that news is finally solved. Until we get the fiscal cliff solved, and we go like that. If you've not been to the free website at perfectstockalert.com, it's right there. It's 100% free, and all we ask in return, please refer a friend. I'd also like to welcome aboard the newest person who told me on YouTube that they just found our videos, and welcome you. God bless, take care, enjoy your weekend, be safe, and I'll see you all on Monday. Please take a moment to review our disclaimer. The information provided herein is our opinion only. Under no circumstances do any statements here represent a recommendation to buy or sell securities or make any kind of an investment. You are responsible for your own due diligence. To summarize, we do not provide investment advice, nor do we make any claims or promises that any information here will lead to a profit, loss, or any other result. These videos are for educational purposes only.